We've got under session 3 of our unit on dilemmas of being male, and tonight's topic is understanding women, a male perspective. And I need to of course, say it that way because obviously I'm not a woman and I can't really speak on their behalf. All I can say is what I've observed, and some women think I'm reasonably okay with them, but I have had to make it a scientific study of how they work. Living with one helps. I can practice some of my hypotheses on Susan and see if they work out. Introduction and bell-shaped curve. God has created men, and fill in there's Bell. And this is a population thing. If you'd have done some sort of university course, you would have come across this. It's a very common thing. God has created men and women in an incredible variety of personality, shape, and size. It's difficult to talk about women in a general way since many are so different to each other. In needing to talk about some of the common ways that men misunderstand women, let's consider this bell-shaped curve. Almost all human characteristics, from shoe sizes to personality types, can be graphed on such a curve. Okay, so we've got this curve, and what is it actually? What are we actually doing with it? What we're doing is we're plotting on the curve between this axis and this axis. So let's just make it shoe sizes. Let's say I think the average size for men, the median size for men's shoes is 10. So that would be there. And we've got the maximum number over here, maximum number of men that wear size 10s. According to the curve here, fewer or more men have size 11. Well, the curve's further down, isn't it? So we've got fewer men that have size 11. What about size 12? That's even less, isn't it? What about size 13? Even less. What about torpedo, size 16 or 17 or something? 17, exactly. No other swimmers, same size feet as him. You know, so they think it's unfair that he's got his own built-in flippers. You know, which there is a truth to that, isn't it? So, and on the other side, of course, the same thing. Fewer size 9s, fewer 8s, fewer 7s, fewer 6s. And I can draw some sort of curve like this for anything. We could do it for black hair. We could do it for hair color. You know, which would be in the world? Which would be the highest level of hair color? Black. Black. Why? Because there's more Asians in the world than any other race. So you know, black hair is going to be really big. In fact, it's going to kind of look like that. And then if we graph blondes, there'd be fewer. And, well, brown would be less, and then blondes would be less, and redheads would be the fewest. And green would be even less, if there was such a thing.
Give it time, though.
Give it time, oh yeah. With Clairol, anything's possible, right? Okay. Now, we've got the same problem when we look at characteristics of, say, Dan Fengler. All right? That is, I've got some characteristics as a male that are there, very typical sort of male characteristics. And then I've got some characteristics that are further out, and some characteristics on that side that are further out. And if, let's say, we drew female next to male, then I've got some characteristics that those two there might be more traditionally female than male. And these down here might be more Aussie, way out there, extreme sort of characteristics. So one, internally, out of all the personality characteristics that I have, there's going to be bunches around the middle, and then I'm going to have a few that are in the extreme. Now, the other thing, of course, is if we're talking about population now, that is, all the males in the country, if we looked at all the males in the country, there's going to be people, men, lots of men in the middle here, But then there's going to be fewer men that have those characteristics and fewer men that have those characteristics. So if I was to write a book like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, who am I actually talking about? The ones in the middle here, right? That lot there. That's the ones I'm talking about. I'm not talking about this guy here or that guy there. Agreed? Now, the problem with talking about these generalities is, in this room here, one is, you guys aren't necessarily typical males right smack in the middle. Some of you will be, but some of you won't. That's the first thing. Secondly, even if you are in the middle, your personal characteristics are going to be spread over quite a range. So if we took imaginary Joe Bloggs, which is sitting there next to Greg, imaginary Joe Bloggs might be a typical male in the sense that he's a rationalist. He's in the middle there. He might be, this imaginary guy, he might be fairly typical in that he's very focused, single-track mind. He could be fairly typical male in that he's thinking about sex way too often. But he might be not typical male in that he's homosexual. Okay? Because homosexuality as a percentage is still out here somewhere. It's not in the middle. Most men are heterosexual, so homosexuals are off to the side there. Smaller population numbers. Okay? So if Joe Bloggs is sitting there and I'm presenting a male perspective about women, he might not agree with some of the things I'm going to say. See, because he's looking at it from a different point of view. All right, so you need to go gentle with me. I might be saying some things that in your experience are a bit different, but we can't talk about this topic at all if we try to nail down every possible combination. Now, Gray, in the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I think he interviewed 25,000 couples. Now, that's statistically, that's very good. That's a fair bit of work, yeah? And in order to write the book. So when he says, well, most men do this, that's because in the sample that he took of 25,000 men, most of those guys did that. All right, so what are the odds, for example, if you ladies, you meet a guy at a youth group, a young people's group, what are the odds of this guy being a typical male? 80%. 80% of the guys you're going to meet are fairly typical in most characteristics. 20 to 30% are going to be not quite so typical. Okay, everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay, so when I say men are like this tonight, I'm talking about that group there. I'm not talking about these guys out there. B, Jesus understood women. Jesus understood women. When Jesus encountered the woman at the well, he showed that he understood the frailties of women. In those days, men did not speak to women by themselves. It was considered inappropriate. Also, Jews did not speak to Samaritans. They were considered inferior mixed race. So by speaking to the woman at the well, he was breaking two taboos. However, Jesus did not put her down or patronize her. In fact, who was astounded? Who was astounded that he was talking to them? His disciples were. See, he was showing this woman some dignity by speaking to her. And you didn't do that back in those days. Why not? Because as a Jew, you treated Samaritans like cast-offs, drop kicks, and you treated women like cattle. So here's a drop kick piece of cattle. You just were expected to treat a Samaritan woman like dirt, and yet Jesus entered in and treated her very humanely. C, men understand women. Question, men understand women? 1, not all women are alike, which is what we're talking about right now. Not all women are alike. So the first area of confusion is that not all women are alike. As we've seen, they may have a male characteristic in one area and be typical female in another. That's why it's so important to carefully listen to them. Number 2, men misunderstood by women. And this is not only one way, it works the other way too. Men misunderstood by women. I often ask men who come for counseling whether they feel like this. It doesn't matter what I do, it always seems to be wrong. This common complaint stems from the fact that men do not understand women very well. Men often confuse women's needs with their wants. An illustration of this is when a man brings flowers to appease an angry woman. Some men would not understand that they're patronizing her. Ultimately, only Jesus can tell men through prayer which complaint is denying of need and which are wants or feelings. I had a guy, you might hear the story some other time in another section of the class, but it's worthwhile sharing this because it's just such a classic. True story. It was an elderly gentleman, a widower, who thought he'd do all the widows in the church a favor. So he wanted to be really nice to them because they deserved, some attention. And he'd go around to various women's houses and sit in their house and have a cup of tea with them and bring them flowers and make them feel very special. Well, one day he gets called down to the church office and says, "You better get down here. There's a big storm in a teacup down here, and it's about you, and you better come sort it out." So he gets down to the church office, and there's 3 ladies in the pastor's office, almost coming physically to blows, having this big disagreement. What do you think happened?
They fell for it?
That's right. We had all the ladies that this guy had met, had visited. They all took the signals wrong. He made them feel special, but when you make a woman feel special, it's because you have some interest in her. So all these elderly ladies thought that she was the one that was going to be the next guy, Mr. Fred. And they just found out that there was more than one potential Mrs. Fred, and they were at each other. So what did the guy miss? What were 2 things that this guy did wrong? We go back to behavior and attitude. What's the behavior that this guy did wrong, and what was the attitude that he did wrong?
I think my moving in the tongues are nothing you want.
I agree with you, brother. Behavior.
Behaviour. He treated each woman as if she were a potential special friend.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. You could use that as the behavior. I would have called that an attitude, that he treated them special, and he didn't really understand how she would take it. So he didn't read into what he was doing from her point of view and see it from her point of view. I would call that attitudinal. The behavior that was wrong was that what's he doing going over as a single bloke over to a single lady's house by himself? Okay? Among the Christian community, that is discouraged for good reasons, because we don't want things like that to happen. So it was inappropriate for this guy to be doing that. He should have liaisoned with the church office and said, "I'd like to do this. How about maybe you send a lady with me, or now and then send a lady instead of me, to break it up so that he wasn't constantly every week seeing these ladies on a regular basis." And if I showed special attention to a woman 3 times a week, I'm giving her the signal that there's something special going on here. Okay? Now, we can't fault the guy's intent, but he did 2 things wrong. It was faulty behavior in the sense that we have these rules for good reason, and he's violating the general rule not to visit a single person with the opposite sex. And the second thing is he didn't know enough about women. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Learn about female. Learn about female. As we've said before, with most couples in counseling, the woman is hurt and the male is ignorant. That's, to me, basic marriage counseling in a nutshell, right there. Most men could benefit their relationships by finding out more about these alien creatures we share the planet with. However, it's not possible for males to fully understand women, partly because each woman's unique, partly because men are so different from them, and partly because many women do not know themselves well. And that's not an insult, that's just truth. And I got to say, there's lots of guys that don't know themselves very well. I see lots of young men who are trying to find out who they are and where they're going. So this is not just a slur on women. Have you heard the joke about the genie? I'll tell you this joke. I'm not good at telling jokes. I've got a brother-in-law. You give him a joke, and he'll get you rolling on the floor. He's so funny. He can take any joke and make you laugh. I take all the jokes that laugh and wreck them. So, so I'll try to get this right.
We'll laugh and make you feel good.
Well, that's it. Get the applause sign out and let you do that. Go something like this. A man stumbles across a bottle on the seashore, and he pulls the cork out, and this genie pops out, and the genie says, well, you know the deal. You get 3 wishes. So the guy goes, makes a wish, something fairly simple, like, I'd like a new Ferrari, and genie goes, oh, that's easy. There it is, brand new Ferrari. So the man thinks, oh, I need to go something a bit more difficult than this. And he says, I'd like you to build a superhighway bridge from Melbourne to Los Angeles. And the genie goes, come on, get real. You got to be joking. Yeah, what's the point of it? Do you know how much work that's going to take? And the guy goes, okay, I thought I could ask for anything I wanted to, and you're sort of trying to get out of this. So I'll tell you this. My 3rd wish is this. I want you to be able to make me understand about women. And the genie goes, oh, no. You serious about this? Yep. I want to know what women are like. So the genie goes, well, I'll tell you what. Do you want it to be a 2-lane bridge or a 4-lane bridge? Okay, going on. Yeah, I didn't completely wreck it. Must be a good night. Just going on in the last of that paragraph there, knowing some general principles helps us to live in the same world as they do and prosper in our relationships. The good news is we can understand them if we take the effort. And one of the reasons why I'm doing the counseling and some of the blokes around are doing the listening is I put the effort into understanding women that they didn't. So it's not like any of you guys are totally stumped here. Thankfully, it's actually not as difficult as the genie reckons it is. D, male-female differences. Male-female differences. 1, opposites attract. Opposites attract. It's true that, like magnets, opposites attract. Males couldn't be further away in their thinking than from female. Males tend to be problem solvers while women are relationship orientated. Males hold up logic as important, females the emotions. Men tend to be self-centered while women are other-centered. Yeah, and those are just some generalized differences. Let me tell you an interesting story of one time where I really got caught out, but it does illustrate just how different the thinking can be. Susan and I were at the Hillswood Sanctuary one day with some friends, and we're walking around the sanctuary, and we're about halfway around, and Susan came up to me and she said, Daniel, would you like a drink? And I licked my lips, and I thought, no, I don't want a drink. So I said, no, don't want a drink. And we kept walking. Now, 3/4 of the way around, I'm going, I didn't get that. What was that all about? And I'm thinking about it. I thought, something here, I'll have to check with Susan when we get all the way finished. So afterwards, as we were going home, I said, Susan, what was that about when you asked whether I wanted a drink or not? Now, we're going to test some of you lads here and just see what some of the things are. Okay?
Well, she wanted one, so she was hoping that you'd say you wanted one.
Well, that's right. She wanted one, And she was hoping that I'd say that I wanted one. That's exactly right. That's one of the issues here. So tell me, why didn't she just say I want one? What's that? So why didn't she just, so I'd offer it, so she'd feel special because I offered it to her. Okay, that could be. That's female thinking. That would work for some. For some, that would work. It wasn't this case, but that's okay. You got that partly right.
You sort of a low self-esteem. Don't feel good about yourself.
That could be, but Susan doesn't have a low self-esteem problem.
She would. I don't
But
know, but I wouldn't know.
okay, but with some ladies that would be true. Low self-esteem. Yep. Keep going.
She just communicates more subtly.
Oh, absolutely, and most women do. Yep. Keep going. You ladies, what else?
She didn't want to put you out by having to make you come with her to go and get drunk. It was just for her. She wanted to wait until you both needed to so that they...
Absolutely. So there's this other centered thing in here. That is, she's thinking about me and about inconveniencing me and etc. If she, in fact, she was concerned about the group. You know, she didn't want to stop the group. Now you might say, well, hang on a minute, that means she wanted you to stop the group. Yeah, that's right. She didn't want to stop the group and cause them the inconvenience of having to stop for her. She wanted me to protect her, so I'd stop the group. If there was any embarrassment, I'd be getting it instead of her. Okay, you got it? True, isn't it? Now, us guys are going, excuse me, wait a minute. Let me get this right. You don't want to stop the group because it might be embarrassing, so you're going to get the guy to stop the group. Well, what about him being embarrassed? Doesn't matter, because guys don't get embarrassed by that. That's the deal. See? So is it no wonder that guys are pulling their hairs out? Yeah? But after you, when you start looking at this more carefully, it makes sense if you are looking at the universe through a female's eyes. You've got to put yourself in their place. They're other-centered. You know, they're subtle. They're relationship-centered, and so you know, I twigged that something was wrong here because I'm thinking Susan doesn't just ask stuff like that. That doesn't make sense without there being a good reason. But it's going to be a good reason from a female point of view rather than a good reason from a male point of view. Now, what would happen if I needed a drink? You just go get one. Yeah. Stuffed a lot of them. I'm going to go get a drink. Well, that's pretty simple. That works. But from a female point of view, that's non-sensitive. It's not subtle enough. And so the complaint is basically goes something like this. Women looking at guys think we're tactless, whereas guys call it honesty. Okay? With women, they call themselves sensitive, and we call it maybe devious. Subtle. Too subtle for us. And that's just different. Each one's got its charms. And I know some women that would rather hang around with guys. You know why? Because guys are straightforward. And so they don't have to look at all the hidden signals that their girlfriends give them and so on. They'd rather hang with guys because at least, you know, if a guy says something, it's usually straightforward, it's out in the open, you can, you know, there's no hidden message. You know? And I know some guys that would rather hang around with women. Why? Because they're more relationship orientated. They don't have this hard, blunt edge. Yeah, just different. And one of the keys to learning how this goes, guys, is this. Women, you got to get this. Women are not, they are not males in female bodies. Okay, I'll say that again. Women are not males in female bodies. We're going to look at this the rest of tonight's session, okay? Brains wired differently, different worldview, different way of looking at things, significantly different, okay? Okay, and I'm a fairly typical male, so going back in that first sentence there, just above the Susan at Healesville, males hold logic up as important. Okay, that would have been me when I first started out. Susan is very much emotionally orientated. I tend to be the problem solver. She tends to be relationship. I tend to be self-centered. She tends to be other-centered. Just while we're on that particular area, because we won't cover it again. You're at a party. In the middle of the party, there's these tables with all these goodies. And you're a male. What do? You go and grab the piece of torta before the next guy gets it. Right? You're a female. And you're after that last piece of torta. What do? You offer it around. And then you go, they took it, and I wanted it. But you offered it. And just watch them. The ladies will get up. Some guys have learned how to do this, but not many. The ladies will get up, they'll take the plate, they'll pass it all around, and then watch them. The last act before they put it on the table, they take the bit that they wanted to eat to start with. Observe. Observe. True or false, ladies? It's true. Yeah, true or false. And there's friction here, A couple standing in front of the fridge. Male is thirsty. Me, Daniel, okay? Thirst. Like Homer Simpson. Thirst. Open the fridge, grab the can, whip the top out. Susan goes, what about me? What about me? Woman, man, in front of the fridge. Lady is thirsty. Opens the fridge, takes the thing out. Here, honey, would you like a sip?
Guzzle.
Unlikely. They'll always leave half in it. Now, what is a woman going to think, guys, about this guy who just reached in and grabbed the can and guzzled the whole thing down without offering it to her? What a self-centered prick, right? Now, the problem is, it's not true. The guy didn't deliberately do that to offend her. It's just such narrow thinking. It's just such narrow worldview when it comes to food that all he can think of is just getting the stuff down there. That's why teenage boys are not difficult to feed. All you got to do is what? Quantity, bulk, chips. It doesn't have to taste. You're wasting your time making it Italian cuisine. No. You take them to McDonald's, you buy them about 5 pounds of chips, and that's fine. Just bulk. It's true. Yeah. So, ladies, please be gentle on us. As we'll see later on, some of it is not because we're trying to offend you. We do a very good job of offending you, but it's not because we're trying to offend you. It's because we're made differently. And the same thing comes around, turns around. Men are not women in male bodies. Are not.
It would be right back to our hunting ancestors.
Well, evolutionists would like to say that. I prefer to say that God made us that way. Okay, let's go on. Next paragraph under 1. These kind of gender differences occur because God designed us physically different, such as brain differences. Males are wired for 3D, while women are wired for language. We'll go into that in just a minute. Other differences are, of course, influences of different male and female or ethnic cultures. So not every woman is totally identical around the planet, but pretty well. Other-centered is very woman around the planet. Emotional, relationship, those generalities are true for just about any culture. And same with the men. Let's just talk about brain differences. We understand it at the moment, scientifically, that in the formation process in the womb, that those babies who have testosterone helps to block the I mean, women's got testosterone too to some extent, but the guys that are going to develop into men, the effect of the hormones and secondary influence is that the left and right hemispheres of the brain are not very well connected. Okay, so basically males have like 2 half brains where women have 1 whole brain. Okay, left and right hemispheres of women, scientific fact here, you can laugh about it, but women have more connections between the brain halves than men do. It's true. Yep, that's right. So, what happens is, if I'm participating in an event where I only need half a brain, I'm going to find it difficult to switch across to the other side. Well, women are easily going back and forth much more easily. Now that's a generality, and we call the sort of brain that's connected, the 2 halves connected, we call that intuitive, where we call it of uniqueness that we all are. You're going to have some women that are very rationalists. Maggie Thatcher, you know, the old Iron Lady in England, she probably would have been one like that. And then you get some guys who are very emotionally and spiritually sensitive. So their brains are more connected across. There's a book out called Why Women Can't Read Maps and Why Men Don't Talk, okay, by Peace, P-I-E-S-S-E. And I'd recommend you read it, except for the one thing, he attributes all these male-female differences to evolution, which I don't agree with. And I'm an ex-evolutionist teacher, by the way. But if you substituted God-given characteristics designed by God or commissioned by God, if as you're reading the book you just keep translating, not evolution, God-given, not evolution, God-given, excellent book to read. I'd recommend it to you. Yes?
Well, you have to say that homosexuality is pretty out there as well.
Yeah. So he's not a Christian, and there's a few things you got to discount. But as far as the statistics about male-female differences, he's done some research. And one of the reasons why women can't read maps, and you just test this, watch how many ladies take the Melway if you ask them for directions, and they have to turn the map to do it. Okay? Any of you ladies? Okay, 1, 2. You 2 don't have to do it? Okay. So you've got a male characteristic then when you don't have to turn it. These 2 are typical female, you 2 are not typical female. What about you, Maria? Not typical female. All right. And the reason for it is that men's brains are wired for 3 dimensions. So what happens to a male-type brain in this particular area is that we take the map off the page and it goes up here, and then we turn the map in our heads. So all of us have to turn the map. All of us turn the map. Just some people turn the map physically. Other people rotate the map up here. Okay? And most men are capable of rotating the map up here, and some women are. But that tends to be a male characteristic, to be able to rotate the map in your head. So you see a lot of women doing this. And I used to despise Susan for that. I used to think, what an idiot. What an idiot. You mean she can't, she has to rotate the map? Oh, that's sick. What was I doing? I was imposing on Susan a male characteristic. So I was seeing Susan as a male in a female body, and I was judging her. Because most men don't need to do that. Therefore, she's what? Some sort of defective male. You see? And that's how we're doing these judging. And it works both ways. Women are doing it to us guys, and men are doing it to women. When I recognize that, hang on, no, my wife is a female in a female body with a female brain, and fine, she can't rotate the map, but my wife can do 6 things at once, which I can't do. We've got some strengths and weaknesses here. We've got some strengths and weaknesses here. And the wonderful thing is that when the opposites attract, my strengths cover Susan's weaknesses, and her strengths cover my weaknesses, and we have a much stronger unit. So instead of butting heads, which is what young marrieds tend to do, what's supposed to happen is I'm meant to respect the differences and cause them to strengthen the relationship. Okay, and that's the primary, in my book, the primary thing that young marrieds need to do is, instead of being in conflict over the differences, actually work towards oneness and respecting those differences and working with those. Now, this book, Why Women Can't Read Maps and Men Don't Talk, same thing. Women are wired up for language. Hang on a second. And I think it's something like women use something like 25,000 words a day, and men use something like 6,000 words a day. And some women wonder why, when their husband comes home after he's used up to 6,000 words and he doesn't want to talk to her, why not? Well, he's already used up his 6,000 words, you know? And she's only halfway through her 20,000. You know? And we have to understand these things and, you know, and be a bit more compassionate about it. Yes, Nick?
You said, why women can't read maps and why men don't listen.
Oh, was it listen? Okay. Why men don't listen? Well, why men don't talk would fit there too. And men don't listen for various reasons. One reason is that they're so focused. And anybody that's got little boys will see this. I get some ladies come for counseling. They've got 2 little boys, and you know, they're constantly nagging these boys to listen. Why aren't you listening? You're ignoring me, and they're getting really angry. And what's happened is the kid's got his Tonka truck, and he's putting, you know, he's just got the bulldozer going in the sand pit, and the sand's in the truck, and he's concentrating. And do you think he hears his mother yelling from across the room? No way. So what do they? Oh, well, you'd know this. So.
My wife just bought a book about how to understand male.
Yes.
And it's actually very relating to
Excellent.
in terms of the competitive nature of men.
Yep.
Generally,
Yep.
you know, you'd ask questions like, do you count the number of cars when you pull up at traffic lights to work out which lane to get in? I said, doesn't everybody?
Yep. Yep. That's right.
Those sorts of things which have happened to us being in the book. I'm told I'm not allowed to read it because she's learning.
Right.
It's quite interesting because there is quite a difference in the
Oh.
way of managing boys and girls. And
You
if you
bet.
have a mother who has had 2 children, two girls, and then they get a boy, they just try to work out what's just hit the hit.
Yeah. Yeah. It would.
No idea.
Yeah.
what
That's
the
it.
kids have done.
That's it. Has she read the book Raising Boys by Steve Biddle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a different one. Give me the title later on if you remember. I'd like to have that in the counseling center. Boys, energetic, running around, getting dirty. I mean, what do guys? And I don't mean necessarily you guys, but what would a regular hunky Aussie boy enjoy? Well, this is it. Trucks, tractors, trains, planes. In fact, big truck, right? Big semi, right? Wouldn't you have loved to have had this great big semi truck when you were about 6 years old? Fantastic. And what are they like in real life? They're dirty, they're big, they're smelly, and they're ugly. And they're scary. Well, everything that women hate, this kid loves. Everything that a mother would hate, this boy loves. Yeah? Okay. Let's go on. Intuitive versus rational. Intuitive people work a lot by their inner knowing. So intuitive versus rational. They are emotionally and spiritually sensitive, intuitives. They know that they know, but have difficulty putting things into words. They need space to express themselves. They generally have good relationships because relationship is a combination of emotional and spiritual activity. And most women are intuitives. Rationalists work on facts. They work by external knowledge or using logic. They often do not respect or understand emotions or spiritual things. Generally, they have poor relationship skills. Again, mostly typical male. Now, this is without Jesus, of course, because God does modify both sexes. The major friction between these two groups is that rationalists, mostly men, don't give intuitives, mostly women, enough scope to really explain themselves before the man either gets impatient or cuts her off. Okay? So let's look at an illustration of a male and a female competing for a mass, an intuitive and a rationalist, because some men are intuitives and some women are rationalists, but here we've got an intuitive and here we've got a rationalist. And they're doing a math problem. So we got a rationalist says, well, I got $100 in my pocket. I'm going to spend $25 on the jumper. It gives us 75. And, Fred still owes me 30. So that's 105. And let's say I'm going to buy something that cost me $55. So I got $50 left. And I'm concentrating on the mass. Nothing else in the universe matters. The world could blow up. There could be bombs falling on left and right, but I'm working this mass problem. Okay? Now, here's the intuitive. Got $100. Now, $100, but you know what? Yesterday, when my husband was angry with me, gee, that really hurt. So, doing some work over there. And I'm going to spend it on this jumper. Hang on a second. I don't know if I really want to buy this jumper or not because it doesn't actually go with my outfit. And it's going to be passé by next year anyhow. So, yeah, okay, well, I'll go ahead. I'll buy this jumper. And you know what? I still am grieving over whether or not, or when my dog died, and it's still upsetting me about this because this jumper reminds me of the dog hair. So I used to, my doggy. Okay, but Fred owes me $30, so now I got 105. Now, same time frame. This person got down to 50 in their calculations. This person got down to 105. Now, what happens when this person's talking to this one? If they got any sort of competitive part to them, what are they going to think? Well, you're an idiot. Don't you know it's $50? You don't have 105. You only got 50 left. What's the matter with you? You brain dead or something? See? What was happening was this person here is only focused on this one. This one's got that track and that track and that track and that track and that track. So if you talk about sheer output of thinking, this person actually did more thinking than that one did. But if we're looking at mass problem, this one can concentrate better and get a much more sharply focused, much more likely to get, a quick answer. If we're looking at relationships, though, this guy's relationship dead. He wasn't thinking about other things at all, just about the mass problem. Well, this person's been thinking about that relationship and that relationship over there. Okay? So when these two get together, what has to happen? This person has to respect the fact that this one's actually thinking about other things they got no idea about. And it's sort of like having a camera lens. If you know anything about cameras, some camera lenses cause like a fisheye. I could take a snap of this room and I'd actually see all the stuff all the way around to there. 38 millimeters or less is a fisheye lens. Or I can have a telephoto lens. So the bigger the number, the smaller the area, the sharper the focus. And men are guys with telephoto lens. They only see a small bit, but the tiny bit they see is very clear, but they don't see anything on the side. And women are like fisheye lenses. They see lots of stuff, but not necessarily as sharply when you look at one bit. Okay? Now let's look at something that would happen with emotions. So that's the, and as I said, some guys are intuitive, so this doesn't just apply to women and men. Let's look at emotions. Here's an intuitive looking at an emotion. gee, you know, Daniel really upset me yesterday. I'm really upset about that. Upset. Upset. That's not right. The word. That's not the right word. And they actually might speak it out, just like I'm doing too, because intuitives need to speak it out as they go along. It helps them to process information. They're not doing it internally; they're doing it externally, the processing. So, gee, you know, I'm really upset about that. Maybe I'm talking to a girlfriend even, and bouncing this off. Gee, I'm really upset about what happened yesterday. You know, he gives me the willies. Upset. No, upset's not the right word. No, I think I'm more like annoyed. Annoyed. No, annoyed's not right. Angry. That's better. Yep, that feels more right. Angry. Yep, I'm getting closer. I'm getting warmer. Angry. It's sort of like, what do you call it? The game sounds like charades. You know, you're getting closer, you're getting warmer. Angry. No, I'm furious. That's it. I'm furious. That's an intuitive. Here's a rationalist dealing with the same situation. Oh, well, you know, shit happens. Feeling? What feeling? Am I supposed to have feelings? That's it. That's it. So we'll just put a blank over here. That's it. I tickled one person's funny bone anyhow. So we just have to learn, you know, and by the way, some people are rationalists in certain circumstances and intuitives in other circumstances. So even there, it's not real clear-cut. We have this broad range, you know, of intuitive with rational characteristics and rationalists with intuitive characteristics. So every one of you has done intuitive things at some time in your life, and every one of you has done rational stuff where you've denied your feelings sometimes in your life. Okay, so it's not clear-cut. And I've made it, you know, extreme position here so you can have a giggle and see the obvious bits. And what is the major friction here? The major friction is this guy doesn't know that he's got any feelings, and hey, if I don't know what it's the pain of being embarrassed, when you tell me you're embarrassed, I'm going to go, what? Well, what for? That's right, get a life. You know, what's the matter with you? You got a screw loose or something, you got a feeling. And I'm going to despise feelings, and I'm not going to want to listen to your feeling. Because, hey, if I don't, oh, that's right, we're going to try to fix them. You know, where's the spanner? Because, hey, if I don't have feelings, why should you have feelings? Remember, we're all very egocentric here. That is, if I'm a male, I'm going to think that the whole universe out there is male. And these strange creatures that are wandering around just happen to be male and female bodies. And the only difference is they got this different sex setup. Big mistake. It's not like that. It is not like that. And the sooner all of us understand that now these other people really are genuine human beings and they deserve to live on the same planet with us, you know, then we're going to get along much better. And I'd say most marriage counseling I do is turf war between the genders, male-female differences. And it's sad that we know so little and that we haven't taken the time to understand each other. So getting back to rationalist intuitive, what has to happen? Well, one, the rationalist has to learn how to identify their feelings and share feelings with other people and be empathetic. The intuitive has to understand that this rationalist that's fairly single-minded, and we'll look a little more about that later in tonight, that it's not because they're trying to be mean and nasty, it's just because they're wired with half a brain. Okay? And when I'm discussing something with an intuitive, and they're talking and 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 talking, and don't seem to get to the point, it's because as they're talking, they're discovering and they're making adjustments to what they're trying to accomplish. The process, you can see the process happening. You know, this is the intuitive doing the math problem. You know, speaking out loud. $100. See, I got $100. Well, that's a nice jumper. I wouldn't mind having that. That'll only leave me, with 75. Here's the rationalist. $50. What happened? Well, he did it all internally. All the processing was internally. And how's an intuitive, by the way, going to take that silence? He doesn't love me. He doesn't care for me. He's being silent. He's being rude. He's not talking, Wonder what he's thinking. Wonder what, He's got to be thinking about something. That's right, knows the answer. But they don't know that. They don't know that, see? Okay. Let's take a break there. Anybody got any questions before we take a break? Okay, good. We'll stop. Have a cuppa. Okay, paragraph 3 on page 3. Another problem is that intuitives, not having finished their thinking process, can change the final outcome of what they are thinking. This process seems to rationalists as though they've changed their minds, when the truth is they've only processed the information further, that is, the same as the rationalist does internally. This is why it seems that women have taken the right to change their minds. See, the rationalists, they're changing their minds inside, so you never get to see the change in decision. So it looks like they're very decisive. 50 is it. Well, that's because inside here I've done all this rearranging and changing stuff around. So when I say 50 is it, that's pretty strong, male, And the intuitives are going, oh, hang on a minute. No, I can see there's another way of looking at this. And they're actually saying that out loud, see? And so we look at it and say, gee, a bit double-minded, they can't really make up their minds. Now, some intuitives are double-minded, I might add, but, it's not because they've changed their minds. That's a very common intuitive, thing. It appears that way because they haven't finished processing yet. Okay, so there's not any difference in the final outcome between the rationalist and the intuitive. Number 3.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go, Greg.
What happens, what I've experienced is that a woman may say something that you say, oh, that's a bit hard. But it was just her initial thoughts
Yeah,
about a situation.
That's it.
Her final outcome is certainly modified.
yeah, absolutely. And some,
If a man reacts to that,
yeah. If I come home and my wife says something like this, you never take me out to dinner,
never.
then immediately the guy goes, hey, wait a minute, that's a lie. I took you out to dinner last week. Missing the whole point of loneliness and the fact that she's going stir crazy with the kids and that she wants to talk to a real human being and not use baby talk after all day long, talking like a baby with the baby. She wants a real adult. But in her frustration, she exaggerates and say, you never take me out. And you're right, Greg. If I react to that never thing and jump straight in, we're going to have a big bun fight. And I need to back off, just relax. Yeah, honey, I hear that you're hurting a bit here. You're going stir crazy, are you? Yeah, I am. Well, why don't we go out tonight? Oh, that'd be great. It's really quite simple. But we have to have some understanding before we can be that charitable. Number 3, parallel versus serial thinking. And this is related to intuitive rational, but just a more specific thing. As we saw in the illustration above, redoing a math problem, intuitives often don't consider themselves good at math because of the lack of confidence traditional rationalists instill in them. One of the things that some high schools are considering is to do separate math class for women, which really wouldn't work exactly. You really have to have math class for rationalists and math class for intuitives, different. See? And they're also exploring having English classes for guys. Why? Because the guys get put down by the women who've got this great language ability. And again, it shouldn't really be women and men. It's more intuitives and rationalists is more the difference between than men and women. Intuitives often are thinking about more than one thing at a time. Rationalists are very focused and seem to be one-track minds. What are you? Some indicators of parallel processing are numerous books, part read on the nightstand, or multiple files opened on the computer. You know, when you look at the computer, when Susan's on the computer, and you look at it, there's a zillion files. She's got about 6 or 7 files all open, and she's jumping back and forth and typing a bit here and typing a bit there. What are you going to see on my machine? One file. And when I'm ready, finished with it, you close it and you open another one. And you close it and you open another one. So on the diagram there, I'm the single-track rational male, serial, one thing at a time. Intuitive, like my wife, is parallel processing. She's doing more than one thing at a time. Okay. Now, this is actually a very important thing that we've already alluded to a little bit, but let's look at it a little bit deeper. This gets back to wiring. You know, we can't change primarily the different kinds of wiring. I cannot be an intuitive like this. I mean, I've modified. I'm not quite as bad as I used to be, but I'm still primarily somebody that does one thing after another down the track. Now, here's somebody that's doing more than one thing. And if we're talking about women for the moment, let's just make this the woman and that the male. It doesn't have to be that way, but as I said, because I can talk more out of my own experience if I do it like that. One of the things is that Susan has one track reserved for Daniel. My private 24-hour-a-day train track. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing, it doesn't matter what she's doing, and she's over next door counseling, guaranteed that Susan will be thinking about me over here teaching, and she'll be praying for me. Now, I've just spent an hour and 20 minutes with you people, and this is the first time I've thought of Susan. Only because I've mentioned her. So while I was talking to you, Susan disappeared. She, I'll get back to that, but Susan disappeared, but I never disappear. So when Susan's looking at, if she didn't know any better, and she's looking at somebody like me that just grabs a can of Coke out of the fridge and guzzles it down, what is going to be her thought about this male? Well, I'm thinking about him all the time because I care about him. He doesn't think about me, therefore, he doesn't care. That's right, but that's not true. You intuitives out there, be careful. That is not true. And the problem is I'm so wired that Susan, how can I show I care to Susan when she doesn't exist? When I'm so focused that she's disappeared off the radar screen, she doesn't exist if she's not on the radar screen. So, how do we get these two to relate to one another? Well, let's go to this one-track thing. Let me just take a typical teenage guy who's working on his car, because this is a nice extreme example. I'm back when I was 19, and I had my little bomb, and I could work 9 hours on this thing without a break. Skip lunch, skip dinner, didn't matter. Eat like a wolf later on, but while I'm working on the car, total, even food doesn't come into it. So I'm working 9 hours on this car. Now, where does the girlfriend get in? Well, she doesn't. I've just spent 9 hours on the car until I'm finished doing what I'm going to do, and I get to the train station, then I go over and relate to my girlfriend. So how does that make her feel? Not good. Why not? Because she's been thinking over those 9 hours, she's been thinking about me every 15 minutes. So her conclusion is, I love him, but he doesn't love me. Not true. So, but the good news, ladies, is when I'm over here paying attention to my girlfriend, what happened to the car? It disappeared. It disappeared.
You don't love the car.
It disappeared. Then I get to a train station and I jump back, and now she's disappeared and I'm back on my car. Now, how do we fix it so that this guy appears to her like he's thinking about her 24 hours a day like she does? Well, there's a neat little trick that you rationalists need to learn. Whether you're male or female, you got to learn this. Back when you're in year 8, and I used to watch them because I taught year 8 maths, and if they got bored with me, the boys especially, they'd do little cartoons on the corner of the exercise book, and then they'd take them and they'd flick the pages, and they'd do a little movie projection job.
Yeah.
And what happens? Stationary pictures linked together quick enough causes motion picture. So, we use the same principle here. What I've got to learn, see, I can't produce more tracks because my brain's not wired that way, but I can make it look like there's more than one track. Okay? And this is how you do it. You take the 9 hours, which would have been, the 9 hours would have been this. I'm going to work on my car. It's a Saturday. I'm working on my car, and I'm going to do the whole works on this car. So when I take it around to my girlfriend's place, it looks really sharp. Okay? So what does that entail? Vacuuming, washing, polishing, do the mag wheels, pull the spark plugs, change the oil, do a tune-up. Ace, Used to have a boyfriend. He'd take it up on the lift every weekend, get his little toothbrush, scrape off the rust. So that's the old Daniel. So what's the new Daniel do? You take the 9 hours and you break it up into smaller chunks. So, vacuum the car, stop. Wash the car, stop. Polish the car, stop. Pull the plugs, put them back in, stop. Okay? So, in this analogy here, it's going to look like this now. Car, train station, move over, visit Susan. Back, car, train station, move over, visit Susan. What's that? But this, I do this. I had to force myself to do this initially, breaking up the big jobs into smaller and smaller jobs, so that I can. And by the way, ladies, every time I hit a train station, it takes huge energy to switch tracks. It takes a lot of energy. So I'm expending a huge amount of energy doing that initially until I get used to the concept, and then it starts to get a bit easier because I've practiced it a lot. So how does this work? Every time I connect with Susan is worth points, and we'll talk about points next week when we look at romance. So what happens here when I bring Susan to work? I'm with Susan, driving the car here. So I've connected. I go and do an hour's counseling. Counseling's finished. I pop my head around, say, how you going, hon? So what have I just done? I've just switched track. She, as we're passing in the corridor, I give her a whack on the behind, and which she takes as a love touch, which it is. What has happened? I've just switched over, made a connection, switched back. Take her for a walk in the afternoon when we have a couple minutes spare, take a spin around the parking lot. What's happened? Left behind counseling, gone, connected, come back. And I've learned to do that so that I do that 30 to 40 times a day. Now the old Daniel could only do it once in a whole Saturday. Okay? So those of you that are rationalists, that's what you have to do. You can't cause yourself to be parallel thinkers. You're going to have to appear to be parallel thinkers by switching back and forth. Okay?
You could do that by phone in some instances.
Sure.
Really. If you were at work and your wife...
Yep.
was at home.
Absolutely. But that's why some guys don't call from work, is because they're so focused on the work, they haven't hit a train station yet because they're looking at an afternoon as one block instead of saying, no, I could actually divide that up into 3 blocks or whatever, and lunchtime is when I disconnect and I go over and I become something different so that I can now make the phone call to my wife. I have to hit the train station. Okay? So, just reading on there, the problem here is when intuitives approach the rationalist when they're not at a train station. Intuitives need to learn to not despise the focus that rationalists have, and rationalists need to learn to move the train stations closer together. Okay, I just showed you the thing with the car. Now, let's just say I'm not real good at this, and here's Daniel. I've got a couple of train stations in. And Susan comes in and hits me right there. You know, I'm watching TV. TV started the news started at 7, and it goes till 7:29 plus 30 seconds, beep. Okay? And in the middle of the news, Susan wants to talk to me. So I'm sitting on the couch, eyes glued to the TV set. Susan comes along, she says, "You're not listening to me." I say, "Yes, I have. I can tell you exactly what you said," which I can, but it didn't go in. I didn't actually hear what she said. I only heard the words. So what do? Well, if I could make a train station there, that'd be lovely, but I can't. So Susan and I have this arrangement, and it goes like this. 7 o'clock, I go for my news, and I don't want to hear anything until 7:30. And why is that effective? It's effective because I don't get annoyed now that I just missed the interest rate hike while I'm trying to listen to her and listen to the news at the same time. And so I didn't get what I wanted out of it. And did she get what she wanted out of it? No, she didn't get a husband that listened to her, did she? So we're both frustrated. So what's the easier arrangement? Wait until I hit a train station. Well, when do I get to a train station? 7:30. So Susan and I've got this arrangement that the news is off limits. She disappears for half an hour. I'll be glad to talk to her as much as she wants before the news and as much as she wants after the news, but during the news, we can't do it. I can't do it, she can't do it. Let's not pretend we can anymore. You know, and we save a lot of aggravation that way. Number 4, logic versus emotions. Logic versus emotions. This is another savage one. In fact, probably in my marriage, this particular issue has been the biggest fight starter. If you want a big blow up, it's this lack of understanding that has been the biggest cause in our marriage. It's the one that makes the molehills into the mountain. And let me tell you, the first time I really witnessed this was the worst day of my life. Worst day of our marriage, actually, I would say. Susan had an appointment with the doctor down in Melbourne. We were living out of Hillsville at the time. And it was very difficult for us to get down there, all the way from Hillsville down to Collins Street, right in the city. 2.5-hour drive down, 2.5-hour back, 5-hour travel time. You know, like the day is gone. And she wanted me to go with her, which is fair enough. So I had no excuse because I'm not sick. So day without pay. So I've just lost a day without pay. She's just lost a sick day. We've just wasted a whole day going down for a 1-hour doctor visit. And every time we get down there, the doctor's late. And this particular day, we wait for the half an hour, which is the usual with this guy. Nowhere to be seen. He's not even in the office. Wait another half an hour, so now it's an hour. Still no show. Wait an hour and a half. Still no show. Secretary's on the mobile to the guy. Oh, he's around and he's coming. After 2 hours, she says, he got caught up in court because he was a pretty famous sort of doctor. He can't make it. I'm going, no kidding, you know? 2 hours later, and she says, what? Go home and come back next week. Were we pleased? We were not pleased. So on the way home, Susan's got herself into such a frazzle, she's got a migraine headache now, and we actually have to stop the car because she's got a upchuck, and everything's going wrong, and it's just incredible misery. And she says she wants to kill the guy, and she's gone like, I can't believe that anyone's so inconsiderate, you know, and she's just ventilating all these feelings. And this is what Daniel says. Gee, honey, you probably had a really good reason why I couldn't be there. What happens next?
bomb goes off.
She wants to kill you instead.
Yeah, that's right. Why does she want to kill me? That's exactly true. Why?
Taking his side.
That's right. To her, it appeared like I was taking his side. And what caused her to think that?
Because you're male and he's male.
No, not quite. That's a little simplistic. You know, there could be an element of that.
Because you're making excuses for him.
That's what it appears to her emotions that I'm making excuses for him. That's right.
Whereas you're trying not to judge the girl how it goes.
Exactly right. Now, I wasn't as furious as she was. And so, in good conscience, I couldn't say to her, well, I'm really furious too, because I wasn't. See? So I'm caught. I know she wants my emotional support, but how am I going to say to her, I'm really furious when I'm not furious? See? And being pretty simple-minded, I can only do one or the other. See? And I can't find the in-between state, which would have been the simplest thing, was just to say, look, I'm really frustrated too, and everything would have been great. You know? But no, I had to say, you know, he probably had a really good reason. Well, she now feels betrayed. I didn't betray her, but she feels betrayed, and boom, you know, if everything wasn't bad enough as they were, kaboom! Now the atomic bomb went off. Okay, so what's the lesson here? Just look in your notes. We got two people. One's emotional. The one circle's a person, and the other person's a logical person. What has to happen for this to work? Who has to go into whose world? Does the emotional person go into the logical world, or does the logical person go into the emotional world? Okay, just like it says there. The logical person, number one, goes into the emotional world. See the one with the arrow? Logical person goes into the emotional world. And what should Daniel have said that day?
I understand how you
Yeah,
so upset.
yeah. In fact, if I was upset, I'd say, I'm upset too. If I'm not upset, I'd say, I can understand why you're so upset. And it sounds to me like you're really angry. And she'd go, angry? Angry? I'm not angry. I'm furious.
She'd be feeling better already.
Oh, she would. Yeah. What we want here is not to suppress the feelings, which is what I was trying to do. It was like, she's about to puke on me, and I'm not, metaphorically this time, and she's about to puke on me emotionally, and I'm afraid of that being a rationalist male. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to cram the feeling back down in there, so I don't have to relate to it, because I don't know how to do that. And she's trying to get it out, and I'm trying to force it back. Now, what I want to do is, I want to actually pull it out of her. And this is how you'd do it. You'd say something like this. You seem really upset. Upset? Upset? I'm not upset. Yes, you are. What do you mean? Upset? Yeah, I'm upset. Yeah, you're right, I am upset. Intuitive's starting to kick in, getting in touch with the feelings. You say, yeah, I'm upset. No, in fact, I'm angry. And I go, or she'd say, I'm upset. I might say, it sounds like you're angry. Take the punt, guys. You won't always get it right, but take the punt. Am I hearing some anger here? Anger? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I am angry. We want to get them in touch with the feelings, not prevent them from being in touch with the feelings. You want to get them in touch with the feelings.
That requires the rationalist to be intuitive.
You have to learn the lingo. You don't actually have to be intuitive to do this. Okay? You can bluff it. I mean, when she's turning purple and she's waving her arms around, you could probably say, you seem like you're angry. But, you know? Yeah, is there something upsetting you? Yeah. I think even rationalist observational skills lend themselves to that, guys. Okay? You don't have to be an intuitive. You know? Now, by the way, if you don't know what to say, best to say nothing. When I say nothing, I don't mean total silence. I mean make some grunts and, say, yeah, uh-huh. Nod your head and just listen and nod your head a lot. So you don't want to be silent, but if you can't say an intuitive type statement, say nothing. Okay? Now, in Susan's case, it takes her about 20 minutes. And I've asked her, what does it feel like for you when you've got this buildup of feelings? And she says it's something like this. It's like I got 5 wild horses. They're all going the opposite direction, and I'm trying to pull them into shape, that's her feelings running away from her, all these wild horses. And it takes Susan about 20 minutes, okay, to get them under control. So what do I do for 20 minutes? I keep my mouth shut, or I encourage her to share her feelings, one or the other, okay? And if we have to separate for the moment and go separate ways, like she needs to go for a walk, well, okay, let her do that. Then we get together 20 minutes later, and she's got her feelings under control, so she now can do what? She can come from her emotional universe into my rational universe. So, what's the golden rule here, people? Always deal with what first? The emotions first. Logic second. Emotions first, logic second. Emotions first, logic second. If you ever tried to talk logic to somebody who's emotional, how much good did it do? Nothing. So why persist? Don't do it. Simple. It ain't working, don't do it. And there's reasons why it doesn't work. So don't do it. And this has been, in our marriage, the biggest problem. Mr. Fix-It Dan Fengler is trying to have some rational input here, and it doesn't work. So I just got to slow down. So my marriage is all about me slowing down. Okay, I've got an intuitive lady who can't always express herself. I need to slow down and give her grace until she can express herself. She's emotional about something. I need to slow down and not push it too quickly. Just relax. It'll all work out. Just relax, mellow out, chill out. Let her share her feelings. You can talk about the fixed bit later on. It's not going to go away. You're not going to lose the opportunity. You make the opportunity. Any questions? And by the way, guys, all of us men get upset too. And the same thing works for me. If I'm upset and Susan's logical, what does she have to do? She has to listen to my feelings. And you know something? Some women aren't real good at listening to men's feelings. Partly because they haven't had much practice, because we don't share our feelings that much. But Susan gets caught out doing that to me. Okay, let's move on. Number 5, relationship versus problem solving. Page 4. God designed female brains, so relationship versus problem solving. God designed female brains to be relationship communication orientated. Many studies have proven this from a scientific point of view. Therefore, female culture will always contribute to sharing and caring, while their internal wiring makes it easier for them to see relationship difficulties. One way of illustrating this is the fact that women smell 90 times more efficiently than men. Let me just explain that. Scientific fact. You put most women, again, generalities, but you put women into a booth and you introduce a perfume, a smell, and you measure how much quantity of that substance it takes for them to smell it. Okay? And you do the same with guys. You put the same smell in the guy cubicle, and women need 90 times less substance. Okay? So if it takes 100 milliliter of substance for me to smell this smell, it only takes 1 milliliter for Susan to smell this smell.
No wonder they reckon we stink.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And who? That's right. And who gets to carry out the rubbish? The guys do. Why? Because they can smell it from 3 blocks away, and they don't want to. We're basically nose dead, so you might as well get the thick brick male to take the rubbish out. They can't smell it. So there's reasons for this. And women complain about us guys that we do smell because, we've just been out jogging around the block and, it's just dripping with sweat and, it seems okay to me. And they smell some of you lot coming from 3 blocks away. Yeah? Well, I don't want to date that guy anymore. He stinks.
I'm a plumber.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Now the interesting thing is that's not the only thing that women are that sensitive about. Okay, that's an obvious sign. You can measure that very easily, but women tend to be wired for sensitivity in lots of different ways.
The hearing is better too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Their understanding or interpreting of the noise.
Yep, yep.
It's better. Cool bugs.
That's it. Likewise, women see more issues with relationships than most men do. It's almost like men see in black and white and women see in color. How does someone describe what colors they see in a painting to someone who can only see black and white? Ladies, how do the ladies get across to guys who are legally blind? That's a real problem. That really is a problem, and that's what I do. I'm a translator. You know, women come to me and they say, "This is what it's like for me," and I turn around to the guy who they could have said that at home a zillion times, and I turn around to the guy and I say, "Excuse me, Fred, did you just hear what your wife just said?" He goes, "What?" And I say, "She said this, and this is what she actually means." And he goes, "Really? I never knew that." Because my talent is taking a black and white thing, a color painting, and translating it so somebody in black and white can understand it. Even though I can't get the color exactly right, I can talk in terms of shades of gray and dark and light, and we get a close approximation. Now, ladies, is it fair if blind Freddie's sitting over there, okay, and he doesn't see what I see? So I take my baseball bat and I say, "Whack. Fred, can you see any better now?" He goes, "What? What? You still can't see? Whack, 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 whack." And he starts bleeding and it's just trickling down past his eye. Does he see any better after that? Doesn't help, does it? So don't do it. Doesn't help. What you need to do, if you really want the guy to understand, is you either go and get a lady that can translate for you, or go get a bloke that can translate for you. But hitting them isn't going to help. Now, you can pray that God gives them eyes and ears to see what you see so clearly. Fair enough, that's reasonable. You know, but whacking them with a big stick is not going to help. And that's what us guys talk about, being nagged or being manipulated. There's women out there who are so desperate, they're so hurting and so desperate, they try to manipulate us and nag us. But the problem is, we still can't see it. If I can't see something and you try to show it to me 20 times, will I see it any better? No, I won't. Well, all that'll happen is what? I'll be angry now. And are there a few angry guys out there? Yeah. And you know why? Because some of them had mothers who tried to cram colored pictures down the black and white throats. And it didn't work for their mothers, and it doesn't work for their girlfriends, and it doesn't work for their wives. So, a recommendation, ladies, stop doing it. Yeah? Now, it's up to us guys to learn more about you women so that we can make those changes to try to understand your hurt and pain. And we need to become more sensitive. And you know, a classic example is King David. King David was a very sensitive guy. And none of us would call him a wuss, would we? Would any of you guys call King David a wuss?
Call him a warrior.
Yeah, well, he wasn't a wuss. But our male culture is causing us to be black and white. And we didn't have dads who taught us how to look in color. So we need a little bit of grace. You know, and sure, some guys, please, bring it on, right? And sure, some of us guys, we get hurt, and so we get obstinate, we get stubborn too, and I'm not saying that that's right. But anyways. Okay, let's move on. Next paragraph. Another problem is when males try to fix a problem by giving the woman rational advice before the intuitive female has established a relationship. Have you ever had long talks with a female? It's food for them. Many women feel betrayed when they get married and the deep and meaningful talks stop. They thought they were going to get fed like that for the rest of their lives. And we got a few married guys here. How many of you married guys had long talks with your wife before you got married? You know, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. right? What happened after you got married? Did you keep talking to 4 o'clock in the morning? So what happened to all the food that you used to give them? Where are they getting it now?
I get till 4 o'clock.
A bit different. A bit different. No, they're starving. They're starving. Most men, back to your notes, most men can't relate to what's important for women. And how does a woman get through to him? Often men's pride causes them to close their ears. When this happens, only a great deal of pain can cause the man to get with the program. And I think I shared with you last week about the 3 guys that it just took enormous amount of pain. I had to spend 6 months in hospital, another guy went to jail, and another one had chronic fatigue. And we needed that amount of pain to break through the arrogance and pride. And unfortunately, there's some marriages out there where after the lady leaves the guy, he gets with the program. Well, a little bit late then. We need to learn how to humble ourselves. There is an ego, I believe, from God that has given us a bit of an ego that is okay, built in. But then a lot of it we picked up from society, and we've gone arrogant. Number 6, fragile versus thick-skinned. What does the Holy Spirit mean when he calls women weaker? And this is 1 Peter chapter 3. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner, and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. What am I supposed to do here? Well, let me give an example of Daniel not doing the right thing. Okay? We're out in Healesville. We're building our own house. Lots of work to do. We physically built a third of our house, so I'm out on the house actually pounding in nails, and Susan's out in the garden with a pick and shovel putting a staircase in the side of a mountain. And theoretically, I should be doing that, but I can't be doing both things at once, so she's doing some hard physical work. Anyways, one night, I was a bit concerned about her working so hard with this really heavy clay, digging into the clay and rock, but I didn't do anything about it. So at night, Susan comes home and she's absolutely wiped out. I mean, physically sick, and totally clapped out, and exhausted. And the Lord sort of said to me, Daniel, why didn't you stop her? And I said, am I my brother's keeper? And Jesus says, well, if you're not your wife's keeper, who else? Who else would you be as a husband? Where's the care and share here? And I sort of said back to the Lord, I argued with him. I said, well, hang on a minute. She's a big girl now. She's a big girl. It was her decision to work so hard. Why blame me? And Jesus says, because you're the head of the home, and you get blamed for everything. Yeah, swell. You guys want to be husbands? Go for it. Knock yourself out. So I said, well, what should I have done instead? He said, Daniel, it wasn't that difficult. You wouldn't have patronized her if you would have gone out and just said, honey, why don't you stop for a cup of tea? That would have been it. She would have come in for a cup of tea, would have sat down, and she wouldn't have wanted to go back out there again. It didn't, I didn't have to be so bloody-minded about it. What did I fail? What was the attitude problem here? Guys, what was the specific attitude problem that I had?
She can have a work ethic like you.
Yep. Okay.
When it comes to physical labor.
Yep. True. What else?
You were single-minded on your job. You weren't thinking of your wife.
That's true. Self-centered male. True. What else?
Task-orientated.
Yes. Link it to the scripture here now, though. Link it to the scripture. How was Susan a weaker partner? Well, physically, yeah, but I don't think Peter actually means physically. The word, let's just read what's underneath the Daniel attitude here. Women are weaker in the sense of fragile. Women are more easily injured when it comes to relationship issues. Women have a greater need to talk things out. Men need to respect this, not despise it. My attitude was that Susan's a grown woman, that she is equal on par with me, with regard to responsibilities, which God does not agree with. And he is saying that in some areas Susan needs to be treated delicately. And the best way I can say this, guys, and I don't know, because I need to make this very clear and blunt, every woman has got like a hurting 6-year-old girl inside. Okay? Every woman, you ladies can't listen to this, excuse me. Every woman has got a 6-year-old hurting girl in there, and I am to respect that. And I didn't respect it. I thought, ignorant little 6-year-old, why don't you grow up and be a big tough male like me? And I was not respecting Susan's weakness. Okay? And that particular day, her weakness was that she was so goal-orientated, she wasn't looking out after herself. Why? Because she's contributing to our marriage and our building this house. Whereas being a self-centered male, what could I more easily do? Hey, if I'm tired, I just quit. And so what if Susan doesn't want to quit? See, I'm looking after number one. She's trying to look after both of us. See? So I didn't respect the weakness. Now, normally it's not the physical area like this that's the problem. So let me just read that again. Women are more easily injured when it comes to relationship issues. Women have a greater need to talk things out. Men need to respect this, not despise it. I need to respect the fact that Susan has a fragility in certain areas that I don't have. Nick?
The statement you made is that you need to respect on the inside of your wife. There's like a 6-year-old girl.
Yes?
What's the flip side of that? Like with that missing the connection, what is it? Like I almost want to say,
Yes?
if this is how it is, that your wife needs to respect, to me, it seems the other way around, needs to be respected that there's a fully grown man.
Yeah, but often there's a 6-year-old boy in me, but my job is to take my 6-year-old off to Jesus and and get him to grow up. See, so all of us guys, we got the 6-year-old in there. We want to burn rubber down the street, even when we're 45. But healed with Jesus' help. My head is Jesus, right? Now, who is meant to bring the vulnerable 6-year-old girl? Who is she supposed to bring it to? Me, because I'm the husband. I'm the head. Some of you would think that Susan's an old battle axe, in a good sense of the word. She's tough, a tough cookie, resilient, flexible, pretty capable, and she is. But I get to see a 6-year-old vulnerable, hurting girl. That's my privilege and my honor to have that. That's my job, is to allow her to feel safe with me, with that 6-year-old, because she can't feel safe exposing that 6-year-old to the world out there. And the thing that most women are grieving over is that they're not allowed to be vulnerable. Either because they can't trust us, because we misuse it, or because we wind up stomping on it. Yep.
Well, why doesn't she go to Jesus?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Because I'm the head of her as Christ is the head of me. We're talking biblically here. Now the world would say go off to Jesus. But I got to tell you, that doesn't work. It doesn't work effectively. Not totally. Think of it this way. Susan, my wife, gets bulk food from Jesus, but I provide the vitamins and minerals. And it's designed that way. Susan's my help me. She was taken out of my flesh as Adam, and God turned her into a woman, Eve. So Susan is a part of me. And that vulnerable person is in me, if I can put it that. It's not in God, it's in me. I, however, was created by what? God out of the dust of the earth. So I'm directly, as the male, God's creation, and I'm responsible back to Him. See? So there's this emotional protection of touch and emotion and sensitivity that I'm supposed to supply. Can Jesus supply it? Yeah, He does. And some ladies who don't have husbands and whatever, they go off to Jesus and get that. But ideally, it's supposed to be coming through me. And how can I give it if I don't have it? Okay? That's my job. My job is to go and get it first so I can pass it on to Susan. Okay, let's keep going. Bottom paragraph there out of 6. Many women need to talk out of their hurt. It is healthy for both men and women to verbalize their feelings. Women live on average 8 years longer than men because of sharing feelings, they reduce stress and tension and so keep their bodies healthier. Intellectual men, on the other hand, may blow their heart right out of their chest if they keep it all bottled up inside. Differences in sexual arousal. Differences in sexual arousal. We'll go through this fairly quickly because we're running out of time. One area where there's some friction between most couples is the area of sex. For most wives, sexual arousal includes an emotional aspect of relationship that doesn't need to be in the husband. Number 1, warm fuzzies are part of female sexual arousal. Warm fuzzies. When Daniel brings Susan a cup of tea in the morning and makes contact with her, it's part of the warm fuzzy feelings that make her want to have sex with him. For many wives, this arousal may take the whole day to increase. And one moment of conflict can destroy the whole process. Males, on the other hand, can get visually stimulated very easily, which means they can come on very quickly. And this, of course, is also the source of male lust problems. It is said that men will give touch to get sex, and women will give sex to get touch. Number 2, wives don't want to be used. Wives don't want to be used. Many wives get angry and disappointed if they're just there to fulfill the male sex drive. The husband needs to spend time in romance and foreplay to bring the wife to arousal. If the woman's not getting anything out of it for herself, then she will be reluctant to participate in the next time. Some men only touch their wives when they want sex. This is insulting for women, especially since touch is a human and female need. Men that do this need to repent and start to just enjoy touching their wives for the sensuality of it. F, conclusion. Women and men are designed by God to be physically, emotionally, and relationally different from each other. Women are not just males and female bodies. It takes time, relationship, and romance, and more on that next session, to properly sexually arouse most wives. Just turn around page 6 and let's just have a quick look at this survey. This is a survey that was original source. I heard it in a preaching in 1994 at Blackburn Baptist, so I haven't checked the original source, but the original source apparently is His Needs, Her Needs by William Harley. And in the survey it says this: A, the wife's 5 needs to be met by the husband. Okay, so these are the 5 biggies that most women want. Now again, we said, as we've heard all night, there are differences in that, but this is what most women statistically want. First is affection. Second is conversation. Third is honesty and openness. Fourth is financial support. And 5 is family commitment. And some of that you can see is the security issues. Security. All right? And we go to husbands. B, the husband's 5 needs to be met by the wife. First is sexual fulfillment. Second is recreational companionship. Third is attractive spouse. 4, domestic support. And 5, admiration. And we could use the word significance for that. Okay, so security under A and significance under B. And Larry Crabb says that the needs to be met for both are significance and security. Okay, we all need significance. That is that I feel good about myself, that there's a purpose to life, that I count. And a lot of guys try to get this significance by doing what? Working hard, workaholics, getting status symbols, HSV cars and stuff like that. Okay? And where should I be getting my significance? In Jesus. Why? How does that work? Because I'm a son of the living God, I have significance. Security. How do we get security? Well, security is things like physical security from bad guys, emotional security, that is that I'm loved, that I'm acceptable, that I'm worthwhile person, that other people care for me, that I belong to a group. You know? And so what do people that are after security do? They often are relationship junkies, you know. They're spending lots of times in different groups, doing all kinds of interaction with other people so that they'll be liked. And so people will like them and they'll feel part of the group and they'll feel that they belong. And of course that falls over. Why? They might get married because they want the love from a husband. Well, what happens when the marriage ends? What happens when the group dissolves? What happens when the church busts up? You know, there goes all that security. So how do I get security? In God. I get this. He will never leave me nor forsake me. Okay? So we both genders need significance. My wife does. And females tend to be more security conscious. They want that emotional and physical and financial protection. You know? And they don't have the ego needs. The admiration, the respect needs that us guys do. So how does Paul wrap it up? Paul says it like this: husbands, love your wives. What does that mean? Acting in my wife's best interest means I'm going to emotionally, physically, and financially protect her. And then Paul says to women, women, respect your husbands. Why? Because what do I need as a male? I need respect. I need to get my ego boosted a bit. I need that significance that I count and that that I'm doing something worthwhile. Okay, quite a bit different, isn't it? Those two. And that's where some of the clashes are. You know, the guys that are wanting sex and the ladies who... Sex isn't even on the list for women. It's not even on the list. Because for most women, sex is not a big deal. You know, they can take it or leave it. It's not anything big. But the physical touch that happens during sex is very important. And the emotional, and the content, and the conversation, and the sharing and caring that comes with the sex act, supposed to come with the sex act, is very important. Okay, any questions? Now, my last suggestion to you, which is what we're talking about all night long, is please learn about the opposite gender and respect what you find out. That is, these alien creatures are not bad creatures, they're just different. You know? And if every one of you can learn to be more tolerant and more gracious to the opposite sex, that'll go a long way towards having better relationships. Okay, let me just pray for you. Lord Jesus, I just ask that you'd help all of us to tolerate one another and be more gracious to one another, but particularly between the genders. We want to stop the war between the sexes. It's not doing anybody any good. And you never intended that war to be taking place. That's Satan's war, not yours. And so, Father, I, for one, am thankful that Susan and I are different and that we can enjoy one another's differences as a supportive and strengthening of our relationship. And, Lord, I just ask that you help each one here to have good relationships with the opposite sex, to tolerate them, to be gracious towards them, to understand them, and be able to walk in their shoes and identify with their pain. And Lord, just help us all to do that better. In Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, thanks for coming. And next week's on romance.